So let's go ahead and get right into PSA's newest acquisition, which is Genamint, Genamint. I think it's incorporated. They are PSA is pretty much ramping up, especially in their R&D department. From what I'm looking at, I think it's a good way to sort of compete against CGC. So like, obviously we know CGC has this sort of technology to be able to scan cards and do in-depth analysis of a certain card. We've seen that with the Magic the Gathering backed Blastoise prototype card. And we also saw that with the non-holo Charizard card from, is it base set 2? I think it's base set 2. I think it was base set 2.
Just roll with it, yeah.
Yeah, it's either that or Legendary Collection. So it's one of those. It was an error card. I think 2 of them came out of it. It was like a PSA 7, and another one was a PSA 6.
Okay.
But like, what is your thoughts on that? Because I know you posted it on your story as far as that recent acquisition goes.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you see happening in the future? Like, do you think that's going to cause like cheaper prices because they're going to get through things faster? Do you think they'll sort of change how they do labeling a little bit? Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, I hope it changes prices. I hope that we can see some cheaper prices. Do I think the $20 a card is going to come back? Honestly, no. I mean, what do you think? I don't know how it's going to affect the pricing, but I think that we're going to see faster turnaround time. However, I think it's still kind of like testing, right? I mean, I think it'll help the influx that they have right now, but I'm not sure how it's going to affect value. I'm actually really interested to see how PSA's new pricing is going to roll out once this all kind of settles into place.
I think like one of the most interesting things that I read in the article was that they're able to sort of give like this identification to each card where they can match up anomalies on a certain card, and then if that person were to like get their card and they want to get it recased or they want to resubmit and they crack their card out of the case, they can pretty much identify from the jump that this is the card that was sent in last go around.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that to me just it blows my mind, because it's like now you won't have many people just resubmitting cards, and that would also reduce the amount of PSA submissions as well, because it's like, okay, if you get like an 8, this is truly an 8 by their standard.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like I've said this before, not every card should be graded. I feel like most cards shouldn't be graded, and people have been almost taking advantage of that, the cheaper like economy or bulk grading, and grading things that don't necessarily add value to your collection, right? Like, we want to grade cards that are going to add value to our collection. That's the whole point of grading them. Unless you just really want to grade your cards because you want to keep them protected and you like them. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
But
most people want the quick flip, right? When they in terms of bulk. So I think that's what most people are doing. Like, just like a base set card that's like $5-10 and flipping it for 40.
Yeah.
I feel like that's their goal when they submit bulk.
Well, I think that's definitely hindering them at this point. Like, you can't even do that right now. People are looking to other grading companies to kind of flip their bulk. And I mean, to me, I'm going to wait for PSA to see if they come out with new rates. And I'm just like, I'm team PSA. I don't really do like the quick flipping or anything. So I'm here for it. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I think it's a really bad time to grade your cards right now, especially with CGC's new prices too. Like, with you just don't know. Have you seen what they did with CGC's new pricing? I know we're talking about PSA, but
I know they just jumped. I know they just recently jumped. I think it was like this week they went up, but
it's like 15, and you don't think it's that much, but then like to have this subgrades, it's another like $10, $10 per. So it's more expensive. It's like $25 a card, not $15.
Oh wow! Yeah. Do you think it's
to
because?
Submit,
Go ahead.
I was just saying, to submit your bulk, you can't just submit one. You have to submit like 200 of them. So in the end, it's like over 1,000 just to get that type of pricing. So it's like, it's not worth it in the end, because with the huge wave of cards that will be people are going to be competing with themselves, trying to lower the prices. Who can get the best deal? It's just going to be all over eBay, and all the cheap ones are going to get scooped up, and you're going to be trying to compete with them. So at the end, these quick flips are going to be nothing once this wave comes. So just wait, see what happens.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think it's just mostly sports cards. I think that's where we're going to see this sort of I think there's going to be like a massive retracing as far as sports cards go. I mean, Pokemon right now has seen a retrace. I mean, like right now it's such a huge buyer's market right now for people. Like you can buy like old vintage WotC cards that have like pretty much gone down like 50%. So well, close to 50% since Logan Paul peak era. You know, so like it's such a good market right now to buy cards right now, in my honest opinion. I mean, it could go down a little bit more, but I think right now is probably a decent time simply because of that reason. It's really interesting when you like make the comparison between, you know, the vintage market versus like the modern market. Modern prices have held relatively well, but it's like and the thing is that most people don't understand why. And they're like, oh, modern is such a great investment because like the values haven't dipped. But I attribute a lot of that to a lot of it just being stuck at PSA. That's just really it.
Yeah. I think all of the like the single cards from these modern sets, like the chase cards, they're all at PSA.
Yeah.
And once we get them back, I think the prices, like once people start getting them back, we're not going to see the same prices anymore.
Right. So like,
one of the
oh, go ahead.
I'll just say, just like the two, in terms of like what we were talking about for this and for Genamint, and the two biggest things, and I'm curious on your opinion. For me, that stuck out the most that I'm curious about is now that it's going to be graded with a machine and be more accurate, will there be like a black label version of PSA? Like, do you think that's in the talks or in the works? And then the second thing that jumped out to me was like, not pricing, but I forgot what it's again. I totally blanked.
Yeah, so sort of like build off what you just said, like just to, you know, add to that question. I spoke to Rhymestyle about it because he DM'd me about it, and I was like, honestly, he said like to him, I don't think they're going, like he doesn't believe that they'll change the labeling because then it would cause a lot of, like if it was like such a huge dramatic change, like let's say it's 10s, right? And you could have the potential of getting a black label, you're going to have so many people want to resubmit their cards just to see if they want to get, you know, this new label, so to speak. And I mean, like that has happened before where PSA does get new labels, or like they'll do like a brief tiny change and people do.
Is that bad?
I don't know if it's bad. I mean,
especially
like for them
if it's
as
at
a company,
premium,
it's a good
you know?
thing. Yeah, I mean, if it's, I mean, as a company, it's such a good move. In their aspect, because I mean, and I think it's Nat Turner that acquired the company, that he's just trying to get his money back from his initial investment the fastest way possible so he can actually net some profit after that. But I think, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like I mean, it's up in the air. I want to see how like grading changes. Like these parameters that they currently have on PSA is drastically different in comparison to CGC and BGS. So like I want to see how that changes. Like that's what I'm very, very interested on, because like if there's more parameters and the labeling changes or something changes, then I'm more than happy to pay whatever price they have in that regard.
But it's not for all the cards though. It's just for the 10s, like a perfect 10, because now they're able to set parameters where it's within like 1 percentile of like corners or 1 percentile of centering, you know?
Yes, but like at the end of the day, if they're using this sort of AI to grade cards to begin with, if you're wanting, like, let's say PSA's hypothetical version of like subgrades or something,
right?
You're obviously going to pay a little bit more of a premium depending on what kind of card it is. I mean, like, I think they're going to use it, and I think that those parameters are going to be across the board because collectors in general, they like consistency as far as grades go. Like anything below an 8 at BGS is so inconsistent, it's not even funny. And then but they're insanely good as far as like cards with grades above an 8. But there's just like collectors just want consistency as far as grading goes.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel, Laura?
Well, I've never used any other company, to be honest with you guys. Like I've only used PSA, so it's tough for me to even kind of foreshadow these differences with like the BGS and the labels and this and that. Honestly, from a collecting perspective, all I care about is what is going to add the most value to my collection. That's literally, really, like that's all I care about. And for me, that's PSA.
So you'd be good. You'd be up for like a pristine 10 label then, right?
Yeah, I think I would, because if that's going to add more value, and, you know, if I have to wait longer, if I have to pay more, to me that's worth it from a collecting kind of standpoint.
Are you buying more raw cards, or do you buy more graded cards?
I prefer to buy graded cards. I've bought raw cards recently off of like Japanese sellers on eBay, kind of in bulk. And I found that most of them come in pretty good condition, but I mean, it's such a gamble, like the condition. I've also bought off Mercari and like kind of those consignment shops, but it's just the condition, and I like knowing what I'm getting. So to me, it's graded cards all the way.
I mean, like, it's not like today buying raw cards is so different compared to what it was like before quarantine hit. Like, I could go on Troll and Toad or just eBay and just cherry pick high-end cards and just be like, oh, I want this today. And then get that graded, and you could get at least a 7 or above.
Yeah.
Do you think
now you're having to filter out like people that say near mint when it's in reality medium grade?
Every person says PSA 10 ready.
Yeah.
Everyone says that. Or like they'll list they'll say that this card is like near mint, and then the moment you flip it over in the back, it is white. It's whitening all around the edges. I'm like, I don't know about you, but this is not like I like part of me just wants to like have like this copy and paste sort of thing ready to go on eBay and just like message these sellers like this isn't near mint. Like,
it comes with the territory with the new influx of collectors. It's less education when it comes to that. I just remember the second one. So with this new AI technology, how do y'all feel about the grading process? It's going to be a lot faster, right? Because now you're skipping whether there's 8 steps when you grade with PSA, and there's not going to be like those rechecks and like make sure everything is good or everything's centered or a second grading and all the hands or all the human stuff like human error. So how do y'all feel about that?
Am I right? It's going through the Genamint like AI process first, and then a human checks it over.
I think so. I think that's what happens. Like, they didn't go into full detail about it. I mean, they still said they're gonna have humans incorporated within the process of grading.
Yeah. Or I think with like the higher end cards, you've got to get like human eyes on those on the higher end cards.
Yeah. And one thing I talked about with Rhyme Style is that for like a lot of people who believe that a lot of these grading companies are sort of gatekeeping certain grades, like if you have like a PSA 9 first edition Neo Genesis Lugia and there's literally nothing wrong with it, and you've been resubmitting it to PSA and they're just like kind of doing pop control on these certain cards, or BGS does it as well, then this AI would truly fix that. Like, I think it's really, really important to have something like that. And like, my thing is like, let's say they keep their labels relatively the same. Would I be able to like search up the cert number and then actually see all this sort of information that's associated with the card itself? Because I think that'd be great. Like, here's your subgrades down to the actual percentage and decimal point. I think that'd be absolutely fantastic if they can't actually put that on a card.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, especially there's not room for error at that point because it's a computer grading it. It's not like a human, and you can say that's not right, like that's perfect, why'd you put a 7 for that? You know?
Yeah
At that point you have a computer grading. It's like, how are you going to argue with something that's like breaking it down to like the exact
it literally checks everything down to like the very pixel itself, which is like like the way they describe the actual AI itself is just crazy. Like they can scan and sense everything, like creases, like if something is off by like some sort of pixel, it's just crazy, like with what's going on. I don't know what CGC's process is in terms of their details, and I know we spoke about Jarvis. We haven't released this episode, but like we spoke to Jarvis a couple weeks ago, and he likes the fact that CGC is super consistent compared to PSA and BGS. So I think like the fact that PSA is sort of closed right now for the most part, and they've lost a considerable amount of market share to these 2 other companies, I think this probably could be PSA's way of regaining that market share, because like you have a lot of people who are at CGC right now and they're loving it. And I think, like, you know, as collectors, if PSA comes out with something just brand spanking new, I think it could be crazy.